So after linking Firebase application to your Flutter applications like Android, iOS and the web, now it's time to explore the Cloud Firestore database of the Firebase. So we have already talked about this. The Cloud Firestore is a document-oriented NoSQL database that is built for automatic scaling and high-performance applications. And again, the document-oriented means, unlike any structured query language databases, we don't have any tables, rows and columns, but instead there will be the collections of documents, as simple as that. And just like this, the collections replace tables and document replace rows, and finally the columns are the fields inside each of the document, which you are going to see in a while. So let's open up your browser, and in the left menu you will see this build drop down. Simply click this, and now let's go to the tab of Cloud Firestore database and let's try how to deal with the data manually in the database. So we will click this Firestore database. So this will also open up in the project shortcuts. And after some loading, the Firebase Cloud Firestore database will appear and it will say create your database. So let's click this create and select the start in test mode, just because this is not a production but just for testing out that how the Cloud Firestore of the Firebase works, and leave everything as it is. Next, and keep the location of Cloud Firestore near you in the United States, or also you can set it to default. So I am leaving it default just like this, and simply click this enable, and it is saying provisioning Cloud Firestore. So after some time, the Cloud Firestore database will be created for us in this project of Firebase. So after some loading, this window will appear in front of you. Here we have the selected tab data, and there are also the security rules for the Cloud Firestore and the indexes and the usage, and also the extensions. So we will explore some of these in the future video. First of all, let's focus on this middle area of the Cloud Firestore tab. And also again, let me remind you, the basic operations of every database are the CRUD operations. CRUD are the create, read, update and delete. Like these are the basic operations of every database: to create data, read it, update it and finally delete it. So now again, unlike any structured query languages, we have the collections instead of the tables. So we will click this start collection, and here we will name our collection. Let's say we have the collection of users, and simply click this next. And again, this will say if you want some documents in your collection, and there must be a document to create the collection for it. So simply we will select the auto-generated ID for our first document, and for the fields, let's say we want to name our first field username, and the username will be John, just like that, and add a new field and simply name it age and change its type to number, meaning the integer, and set the value to, let's say, 35. And you can also add other fields, and the fields will be in the key and value pairs. The field that will be its key, and that its type, and that will be its value. And that single document inside the user collection will represent a single user inside our user collection. So after this, simply save this. So we have created a user collection. Inside we have the document which replaces a rows in the tables in the structured query language database like SQL, PostgreSQL and any other databases of SQL. And inside we have the fields of age and the username, and that is the unique ID of that document to access this single user. So that was a simple create operation of the database, how to create the data in the database. So that's how we can manually create the data in our Cloud Firestore database. And now let's try how we can update it. So here you will find the option of edit field. Simply click this and it will open up this for you. This is the username, and now let's change this username to Steve Jobs and update it. So that's how we can update the data manually in the Cloud Firestore database. And simply we can also delete the field just like this, and we can add another field, let's say only name, and set its value to new user, and simply click this add. So a new field inside the document will be created. And also we can create the other documents by simply clicking this add document, and this field will again appears, and let's select auto generated ID for this, and let's say this will be our second user, and it will be, let's say, username. Its name will be, let's say, user2. Add another field. This will be age, its type will be number, and simply its value will be 22. Save this, and we got another document, and this is now will be represented, for example, the second user in our user collection. And like this, to store our data, we are going to have the collections and the documents. We can create a data like this, and we can delete it, and also we can update it. And these users and other collections will be according to the model of your application, like if you have the social media application, if you have the e-commerce application, and also other applications. So the model and the collections will be according to that. So that was a simple preview of how we can create the data in our Cloud Firestore database, and also how to create the documents manually, just like this. So now you might be thinking, we have created data, we have updated also the data, and we also have deleted the data. So you might be thinking, so what about reading the data? So as it's the backend database, and we are allowed to create, update, and delete because we are already reading it. In simple words, we are already seeing it. So that's why we can perform these operations. But in case of Flutter application, the reading of the data will refer to the data when we show it up on our emulator or the UI, which is going to require some extra code like fetching, conversion, and the reading of the data, and you will get to know about this in a while. So that was all about dealing the data manually in the Cloud Firestore database. Now let's go for performing all of these operations in our Flutter application. So let's move to your Android Studio. So before going forward and start performing the CRUD operations in our Flutter application, you must have everything set up with Firebase. Like if your application is running on the Android, you must have setup of Android Firebase app with Flutter Android app. And the same for the iOS if your app is running on the iOS, and also for the web. So as always, we have a simple Flutter application with an app bar of text Firebase setup. So now down here we are going to have the body of the scaffold, and this body is going to return the widget of the column and the property of children, which again accept the list of widgets. And inside the column we are going to have the elevated button, where we have these two properties required, on press and the child. And in the child of the elevated button, we are going to have a text widget, and inside we are going to have the create data text. And for the on press method, we will write some code to create the data in our Cloud Firestore database. Now after this, Ctrl S to hot reload, and we got this create data button in here. To move it at the center in here, we will wrap this elevated button with the widget of center widget. And after this, Ctrl S to hot reload, and this button will be moved to the center. So first of all, in the onPress method, we will create a variable of final. Its name will be database reference, and it will be equals to the Firebase Firestore instance. And this Firebase Firestore is coming from the package which we have added in our previous video, and that was the package of Cloud Firestore. So if you don't have this package, so you must have to add this Cloud Firestore package in your pubspec.yaml file. So that's it. Go to your main.dart again, and after this database reference, we are going to have the await keyword, as we are calling a feature method in here. So for that, we need to make our function asynchronous by putting the async keyword in here. And now in front of this await, we are going to have the database reference, and from this we will access the collections. And as we are going to create the data in our users collection, so simply we will do the users. And after this, we will access the document method, and inside this it accepts the string, the document ID. So let's say for now we will set it to 1. Now after this, we will call the set method on this. The set means to create the data in our Cloud Firestore database. And the set method is going to accept the map object, meaning that simple key value pairs documents is fields like in the key and value pairs, so it accepts the map object. So we will specify simply, we will set the username to John and the age to 45 and the address to New York. And later on, this data will come from the text field, and you will get to know about this, how we will take data from the text fields when we go for creating the application of Node. So for now, let's keep it just like this to get to know about how to create the data in the Cloud Firestore from our Flutter application. So after this, you simply have to Ctrl S to hot reload, or simply hot restart your application to reset everything, and then go to your browser and simply delete this collection. Simply type the users in here and delete this collection, and that was the data which we have created manually. Now minimize this and simply click this create data and open up the console, and something has happened. We got a lot of messages in here. So now after this, move to your browser and reload this page. So we got the user collection and the document ID 1 as we have specified, and the data of address, age, and the username which we have specified our map object. So that's how we can create the data in our Cloud Firestore database from our Flutter application. So we can create the data in our Cloud Firestore database just like this, but doing this is not going to be a good practice to hardcode everything just like this, because in real life application we mostly work with model objects. So let's create the model for our user. So the user model will be the class and its name will be the user, and inside this there will be the fields. That will be the fields we want to create in our Cloud Firestore database. So these fields are not initialized yet, so simply we will pass them in the constructor just like this to initialize them later. So after this we will do some cleanup, like here we will delete all of the code in here, and simply we will call the create data method in here, which as a parameter is going to accept the user model class. So we will initialize the variables of the model class user just like this. So for now the create data method is not yet created, so let's also create this method. So this will be our method of create data which accepts the user as a parameter, and inside this create data method we are going to have a final field of user collection, as we are going to access the user collection, and it will be equals to the Firebase Firestore instance.collections of user. And after this we are going to have an ID variable of type string which is getting the random ID for our document just by doing this, and we are not specifying the ID in here. That is because the ID will comes randomly from here. So after this ID we are going to have one more variable of final. Its name will be the new user. It will be equals to the user model object, and the username will come from the user.username, meaning that it will be specified there where we will call it. And here we are already passing the username as John Doe and the email is john@gmail.com. So it is simply saying the data will comes from this user model, and we are already initializing the variables or specifying the fields in here. So we are getting the username from user.username, meaning this user model object, and the ID will be that randomly generated ID, and the email will also come from the user.email. And later on the data we are just hard coding in here will comes from the text fields, and you will see it in the future videos, just because in this section we are just learning how to create the data in our Cloud Firestore database, and you will understand more clearly when you go for doing the real scenarios with our Flutter application of nodes. So for now let's keep it just like this, and now after this we will call the user collection.document, and the ID that will be our randomly generated ID. On that randomly generated ID we will simply set this new user just like this. So this method will create our user in our Cloud Firestore database. But here you will find an error. It is saying the argument type user can't be assigned to the parameter type map string dynamic. So it accepts the map and we are passing the user model object. So to overcome this we will go to the user model class, and down here we are going to have a method of map string dynamic, and its name will be to JSON to convert the data from dot objects to JSON, and this is going to return a simple map object, and for the username it will take the username, the email will be the email, the ID will be the ID we are passing in here, and also for username email this will be also this username and email which we initialize or specify in here. And to convert the data from user model objects or the dot objects to map string dynamic or simple JSON data, we will call the method which we have created in our user model. So this will convert this data to simple map string dynamic from user model objects or from the dot objects. So simply the error will be fixed, as this accepts the data of type map string dynamic or the map object as we have specified when we are creating the data initially. So that was all about this create data method. So after this done, simply hot restart your application, and after this simply click this create data button again and simply open up the run console, and something else happens, and simply move to your browser, and we got the user on the randomly generated ID, and here inside the document we are going to have the fields which we have specified right in here, and also we store the ID as a field also in the document. That is because later on we will use this ID to manipulate this specific document, like to delete it or update it. So that's why we also store the ID also as a field and also as the document name. So that's how we can create the data on a bit clean way in our Cloud Firestore database. So now let's go for the other operations of Cloud Firestore database. So now we will go for the read operation of the database, like to read the data from our Cloud Firestore database and simply show it up on our emulator here in the UI. So for that, we will create a method of read data and its return type will be the future list of user, meaning that it will return the list of users from our Cloud Firestore database from the user collection. And the future is because we will wait for a process to complete. So same like the method of the create data, as we are reading the data from our user collection, simply we will access to the user collection just like this. And after this, we will simply return the user collection dot get method to get or read all the documents inside the user collection, and this get method will give us the future query snapshot of mapstring dynamic. So here we will do .then method, meaning that if it got all the future query snapshots of Cloud Firestore. So after this we will do, first of all we will change the name of the high order function value to the query snapshot to make it more clear. And after this arrow function, we will do from the query snapshot, we will access the query snapshot document of mapstring dynamic, like hover it, and you will see the list of query document snapshot mapstring dynamic. So this will give us the list of documents inside the collection, and simply we will also map this, and finally we will convert each document inside the user collection from document snapshot to .object to simply read it and simply show it up on the UI. So we will do from our user model, we will call the from snapshot to convert the data from snapshot, meaning that from document snapshot to .object. And finally, we will convert it to list, as we want the list of .object, so then we will show it up all the user of the user collection here on the UI in the list view. So after this done, simply go and create this from snapshot method in the user model. So after this, we will go for the user model, and here, same like this to.json method, this method converts data from .objects to some JSON data of mapstring dynamic so that we can store it in our Cloud Firestore database. And now to fetch it from Cloud Firestore, we need to convert this data from snapshot to .object, then to read it and show it up on the UI. So for that, we will create a method static from snapshot. This will be a static method, and in the parameter it is going to accept the document snapshot mapstring dynamic and snapshot, and this is going to return the user object, and simply we will convert all of the fields or data inside our Cloud Firestore database from snapshot to .objects just like this. And simply there is one error in here. It is saying here we are doing, let's hover it up, it's saying the return type of list dynamic is not the future or list user as required by the closure context. So it is simply saying that we have the static method and its type must be also the user. So after this, simply go in here and simply put the semicolon in here. So that we have successfully implemented the read method of our Cloud Firestore. So now we will be allowed to read the data from our Cloud Firestore database. So in here, after this center method, we will do put the comma in here, and right after this we are going to have the future builder widget, which accepts two properties of future and the builder. So the future builder widget can be used to easily build the UI that updates based on the value returned by the future. So this method of read data will return the future list of user. So to show this list of users on our UI of type future, for that we will use the future builder to build this future data and simply show it up on the UI. So for the future, we will call simply this read data method, and in the builder, it accepts the context and the snapshot. The snapshot will be our list of user. So also make sure you have specified the list of user generic type to the future builder, so that this is going to return the asynchronous snapshot of list of users. So in here, we are going to have some conditions. So we will do if the snapshot connection state is equal to the connection state dot waiting. Simply we will return in the center the circular progress indicator, meaning that if the data was loading, if there was some connection or internet connection problem, so the connection state will be equal to waiting, and simply we will return the circular progress indicator. And the second condition in here is going to be if the data is empty, meaning that if the list of users were empty, or we can also say if inside the user collection there were no documents, simply we will return a center widget. In the child, there will be a text with the string of no data. So if the list was empty, simply this will say no data in the list or in the collection of the users. And after this, we are going to have the variable of users, and inside this we will simply access the data from our snapshot, meaning that the list of users coming from this future method of read data. And then simply we will return a padding widget to give some spacing from all of the sides, and it will be 8, and the child of this padding there will be a column widget which has the property of children and accept the list of widgets. So simply we will remove the square brackets from here, and we will use the users list of users, and simply we will map these users, and this will give us each single user. So we will name this user, and simply for each of the users coming from the list of the user from the user collection, we are going to return the list tile widget, and in the title and in the subtitle property, we will simply pass a text widget and access the username and the email of each of the user coming from the user collection of the documents. And there is errors just because we have passed the map and this accept the list. So simply after this, we will convert this to list. So that will be it, and simply as this is nullable, just because of this question mark, so we will put the assertive operator in here and also put the semicolon in here. So after this, simply how to start your application, and there is some error. Let's open it up, and it said the non-null value must be returned since the return type widget does not allow the null. That is because we also need to return this padding widget from here, and also again how to start your application. So after this, we will get the null check operation used on a null value error in here. That is because if you move to your browser, and in here we have this user also in here, which has some invalid data in here that we have created. So let's delete this document from here, and the data was invalid just because we have some correct fields in our models, email, ID and user, and that is getting only the user on that specific fields, and the data that was in the other field was some invalid data that was not matching the model. So that's why there were the null check operator used on null value error, and also the data there were required was like the address and some other data. So the data it required was not in the user model, so that was also there were the error of null check operator used on null value. So simply minimize this, and again how to restart your application. So after some loading, you will see we got the John D with the john@gmail.com ID in here. So we have created our user, and simply we have also get the user and we have show it up on the UI. So that's how we can create and read the data from our Cloud Firestore database. So now let's go for creating the other user. Like here we are creating the user, simply change the username to the Steve Jobs and also change this to, let's say, Jobs. And after this, simply how to start this application, and click this create data. And you can see we got the Steve Jobs in here, and let's again create this, and again how to start the application, and we will get one more Steve data in here with the same name and the email. So if you notice, when we create data in here, like when we create, for that we need to hot restart the application to get the new fresh data in here. The reason behind this is we are using the future builder and the future data. So to get some live data in the stream, so for that we need to change this future builder to stream builder, and then also change this future to stream, and also for this read data method, here we will go and change this future type to stream. And now instead of directly calling the get method, this is going to be the snapshot method to get the snapshots of the documents, and then instead of then method, we will call the map So simply this will map the snapshot, will give us the query snapshot, we will get the query document snapshot in the list, and simply we will map this list and will convert each of the document from document snapshot to .object, and simply we will be reading it in here. So now the data will be in the stream, as we have used stream in here and also the stream builder in here. So the difference between the future and the stream is the future is a single asynchronous computation that returns a single value. As I said, a single asynchronous computation, and it waits for the value. And in Flutter, the futures are commonly used to perform some operations such as network request or file input output. And as we are saying to the Cloud Firestore to give us some data, and that is said to be a simple network request. This is not an HTTP request, but simply we are saying the Cloud Firestore to give us some data, and simply when it gives us, we simply convert this snapshot to .objects and then simply show it up on the UI. So again, the future give us only single response, so that we need to restart our application so that response will appear on the UI. But in case of stream, a stream is a sequence of asynchronous events, and in Flutter the streams can be used to receive the data over a time. Like now when I hot restart the application having the stream builder, and simply when I click this create, so the data will be created and will directly show it up in the UI, and click this again and again and again. Just like this, it is creating the data and give us responses in the stream. So that is the difference between the stream and the future APIs. So you can also read more about them by heading over to flutter.dev. So here you will find the more useful documentation written by the professional Flutter developers. So that was also it for reading the data from our Cloud Firestore database, and now let's go for updating the data. So now to update the data from our Flutter application in the Cloud Firestore database, first of all in the list tile we are going to have the property of trailing, and here we will pass the icon and the icons of update, and simply we will wrap this widget with the gesture detector, and the onTap method we will simply call the update data method. So let's go and create this update data method, and it is also going to accept the user model as a parameter just like this, and inside this the ID will be the ID of the specific user coming from this user, meaning that a single user, and when we click this will be the ID of the specific user which is tapped, and simply we will update its username and email to, let's say, username to 4xA and AAA@gmail.com. So each user that is tapped, its email and username will become just like this. So now let's go for implementing this update data method. So copy its name, and down here right after this read data method we will do the update data method, and after this if you Ctrl S to hot reload you will get this update icon in here for each of the user in the list. So now in the update data method we will do, first of all it's obvious we need to access the user collection, and after this we will create a new final variable. Its name will be the new data, and it will simply will be equals to the user model, and the username will be the username which we have specified already, the AAA or 4xA, and the ID will be the specific ID also coming from the user model, as we are accessing the specific ID of the user which will be tapped, and then the email will be also the email which we have specified in here. So each time a single user is clicked on this update icon, so its email and username will be changed to this email and username. So after this variable we will call the user collection .document, and on the specific user.id simply update that user with that new data. And that's how we have successfully implemented our update data method to update the data in our Cloud Firestore database. And you can also see the reason of the ID. We store the ID field also inside the document and also the name of the document, so that we will be able to manipulate the specific document on its unique ID. So on the ID here you can see we are updating the data, and later on you will see in the delete method we will also delete the data on the specific ID. So after this simply hot restart your application to see the magic of also the update data method. So we have hot restart our application, and simply we have this first tier job. So when we click this you can see it is updated to 4xA and the email of AAA@gmail.com. So let's try out for the second one, this third one, and you can see that's how this update data method works. And also remember this data will again come from the fields Just for testing now, we are doing it just like this, hard coding the data like this, and later on this will come from the text fields. So you don't have to worry about this, that's why we are doing it like this. So everything will be cleared when you go for creating the Node application in Flutter. So for now, let's simply understand that we are going to update, create and read the data like this from our Cloud Firestore database. So that was it for the update data method, and now let's go for deleting the data from our Cloud Firestore database. So now to delete the data from our Cloud Firestore database, first of all, let's take a look at our Cloud Firestore database. So in the browser, you can see we got a lot of documents on their unique IDs which is randomly generated. And this first user is AAA@gmail.com, and that is the user we have updated. And the second one is also this AAA. The fourth one is the Sam, and the third is the John, and that was the fourth, no, the third, and the fifth is the Jobs, and that will also be the Jobs and the Jobs. So that are the users in our user collection. And now let's go and write some code to delete the data from our Cloud Firestore database. So let's move to the Android Studio. So in here, first of all, we will do in the leading property of the list tile, we are going to have an icon again, and that will be the icon of delete, and simply wrap it again with the gesture detector. And in the onTap method, we will simply call the method of delete data, and this is simply going to accept the ID just because we are going to delete the user on the specific unique ID. So there must be something unique in the fields to manipulate that data in the document. So we can't have email and username unique just because you can see we have a lot of redundancy in these fields. So that's why we have generated the ID randomly, and that will be each time the unique ID. So that's why we are using the ID as our unique identifier, and simply we are manipulating this data inside the document using this unique ID. So that's it. Now let's go and create the delete data method. So right after this update data method, we will simply copy this method and paste it in here. We have to access the simple user collection, change its name to delete data, and simply you don't have to create this variable in here. Simply remove this, and on the specific ID we will simply call the delete method in here and nothing else. So our job is done. Simply here we need to change the string, and this will be the ID, and simply pass the ID in here and nothing else, and that will be string. So everything will be fixed by doing this. Here we need to just put the assertive operator here just because it accepts the string of nullable type. So after this, simply how to start your application to see also the magic of the delete. So we got a delete icon for each of the user. Let's say we want to delete this John D in here. Click this, and the John D is deleted from our Cloud Firestore database. So let's also delete all of these users in here. Delete all of them just like this, and you can see we got now this condition true in here. It's saying no data. Now the list of users or Cloud Firestore, it's null or empty. That's why it is saying the no data. Now when we create this create data, so the Steve Jobs is created, we can update it, we can also delete it. So that was the simple basic CRUD operations of Cloud Firestore database, and that's how you can deal with it with the Flutter application. And in next videos, you will get to know about this more in depth. So if you want this code, you can simply get this code from the GitHub, and also when you come in here, not forget to start the repository. And also if you like the video, not forget to like and subscribe in order to not miss any upcoming video from the eTechViral. And also to make sure, let's go to the browser, and you can see inside the user collection we have nothing. When we create one in here, one document is created, and open this up and move this in here, update this. This got updated on the specific UID. You can see the ID is not changed. When we delete this, this will be deleted just like this. This works.